Good evening. A 25-year murder mystery has been solved by Metro's cold case homicide detectives. Thanks for joining us at 6. I'm Denise Valdez.
And I'm Brian Loftus. The horrific murder of an 81-year-old Las Vegas woman was profiled a few months ago by the 8 News Now I-team. And since that story aired, investigators and prosecutors have been able to narrow the list of suspects down to one name.
And he is someone already serving a prison sentence. The I-team's George Knapp is here with the exclusive story.
Well, as you might recall, back in February, we revisited the cold case murder of 81-year-old Ada Marion Priolo. She was stuffed into the trunk of her car and left to die in the blazing heat of a Las Vegas summer. Uncertainty about the killer's identity has tormented Priolo's family for nearly quarter century. They were relieved to finally get the phone call from Metro Homicide.
There's not one reason why she was killed. There's not one reason. They say, you guys say on the news they're trying to look for a motive. There's no motive because there's not one reason why she was killed.
As a 17-year-old, Tammy Stillwell became the spokesperson for a family devastated by the August 1994 disappearance of 81-year-old grandmother Ada Priolo. Mrs. Priolo had left her apartment on Brush Street to do some shopping. Detectives believe she was abducted when she exited a grocery store at Decatur and Meadows. Her car was found days later in the parking lot of a church a few miles away. Ada's body was in the trunk. She'd succumbed to the stifling triple-digit heat. Ada's granddaughter has waited nearly 25 years for the call she just received from a Metro detective.
I had to sit down. I was shaking. I couldn't breathe because, you know, it's been 25 years of wanting this, looking for this, searching for this, hoping for this, and there it was.
Ada's daughter was the second to hear the news.
Well, I can't repeat it the way she worded it, but that they caught the SOB. That's a nice way of putting it.
The district attorney has charged 41-year-old Christopher Mack, a.k.a. Christopher Smith, with the Priolo murder. Mack has an extensive and violent criminal history and is serving time in a Nevada prison. Cold case homicide detective Ken Hefner told the I-team months ago the killer was likely a youngster at the time.
Yeah, it just seemed kind of reckless and foolish, and I mean, how much money are you going to get from an old lady?
Mack was 17 when Priolo was abducted and left to die. Mack's fingerprints were found in 5 locations on Priolo's car, including the trunk. But because he was a juvenile in 1994, his prints weren't in the system. They were added years later when he was busted for other crimes. Hefner took a fresh look at the case file and spotted a clue about why the car may have been left at that church.
When I'm looking at it and figuring out where he lived, where the car was abandoned, it's less than half a mile. So to me, this is the last place he could park a car, not on a street, and be as close to his house as possible so that he can have a short walk home in mid-August because, you know, it's hot.
Family members are still haunted by mental images of Ada's final hours and are not sure how they will feel if or when the suspect goes to trial.
My mom and sister haven't, and they don't need that. You know, the damage it did to them is what gets me the most. You know, that's what hurts me the most.
I was asking the same thing. I don't think we'll know until it actually happens. It's hard to say right now.
The best for me is that, you know, especially with this conviction on top of everything else, he will never, ever hurt another innocent again.
Cold case detectives went to Southern Desert Correctional to speak to inmate and suspect Christopher Mack, but as soon as they mentioned Priolo, he ended the conversation. Family members say they plan to be at every court hearing until the matter is resolved, and detectives still want to hear from anyone who might have additional information. Back to you.